First and foremost, yes, I'm recording this in the bathroom on the toilet because it's the only place I could talk without waking the baby. So let's just get that out of the way. And secondly, if you've been a fan of the channel and you've been following my live streams, then you know I just not too long ago finished the series Dead Space, or more particular, the first Dead Space remake for the PS5. Now, as I'm about to talk about when I shut up and my little animated character starts talking, I'm not a big fan of survival horror. I pretend to be, act all macho, throw on Resident Evil, and immediately poop myself. But there was something about this game that was just different. Sure, it had its jump scares and its cheesy freaking horror elements that, you know, are typical plot devices and stuff like The Evil Dead or Scream or something. But this just was devised a lot more carefully, so to the point where it was super sci-fi, super action-based, and sprinkled in its moments of grotesque jump scare horror. Now, normally this would be the thing for me to literally jump out the window and just see how that goes. But I didn't. I muscled through every single one of those chapters, and when I was done, when Nicole looks over you and makes that face, I just jumped out of my skin and immediately wanted to go back in my skin and play again, to which I'm doing. I'm playing the Dead Space 2 game now. However, I have some critiques about the game and I want to talk about it. But more importantly, I want to just start this off by saying 2 thumbs up. I mean, Mutty loves this one, and let me explain to you why. I hate scary movies. Well, kinda. It's sort of like a love-hate relationship where I jump out of my skin every time there's a cheesy, over-the-top jump scare, yet when it's over, as I'm lying in a pool of my own tears and urine, I normally want to watch another one. It's literally the film equivalent of self-deprecating behavior, only substantially more innocent than something as destructive as, say, people who get thrills from pain or gambling. But nonetheless, regardless of the degree, it's a pretty fascinating phenomenon. And the weird thing is, I'm not like this in real life. I can jump off a cliff into a lake, no problem, face off against a dude 10 times the size of me, knowing I'm gonna get my ass kicked. I've even played no-pads tackle football back in college, and returned punts going against people that are literally the size of a freaking industrial-sized refrigerator. Deadass, these guys could kill me with their pinky if they wanted to. But when it comes to jump scares and horror-based media, nuh-uh. You see, a lot of this I blame on my wife, as she's literally seen every scary horror movie or show that's ever been put to screen. I mean, seriously. We'd be going through some real indie D-list deep cuts on Amazon, and she'd be like, watched it, wasn't that scary. So when I popped in Dead Space, a genre of game that I've never really tickled my fancy before, I figured, what the hell, it'll be like watching Evil Dead mixed with Alien or something. And you know what? I was absolutely right, and I freaking loved it. Now remember, survival horror really isn't my cup of tea. One of the first games I ever tried live streaming was a game called The Forest, and I'm pretty sure I pooped myself the first time I saw a cannibal from afar. And when I saw my first mutant, I'm pretty sure I was clinically dead for about 90 seconds. So of course initially I was hesitant to start the game, but when I got my first weapon, dismembered my first slasher, and survived my first jump scare, the game really started to open up and take shape into something a lot more than just another scary game. It's literally like Alien, only with zombie mutants instead of xenomorphs. Even the name Xenomorph was similar in the game, where the mutants were called necromorphs. Furthermore, the overall story of the game was a lot more interesting than I thought it would be. I mean, sure, it begins with your standard fetch quest, where you're tasked to find out what happened to your girlfriend as she's aboard this giant spaceship called the Ishimura. But as you progress through each chapter, more and more details emerge as to why the mutants are here, how they've come to be, and how many different varieties of mutants there are. The level of details the writers and the devs put into this game really starts to shine. Now, speaking of mutants, there aren't just some random generated monsters on some kind of alien species from a galaxy far, far away. No, instead the writers of the series explain how each mutant comes to be. For example, alright, follow me with this one. There are some mutants with a tail that can only walk on their hands, but upon further examination, the reason why this came to be is because during their transformation, the legs of the humans fuse together to form a quasi-tail to which the slasher claw protrudes from. It's really gross, but it's also freaking awesome. This continues to other forms, such as the infants who don't have enough body mass to obtain claws, so instead they have these little appendages that spurt out from their backs and they climb above the walls and spit acid at you. It's grotesque, but carefully mapped out to the point where you could somewhat believe it, in like an, oh god, please don't ever happen kind of way. As you move further into the game, you and your team consisting of Hammond and Daniels come into contact with a group of religious zealots called unitologists, centered around their worship of something called the Marker. Now, this Marker, which is some kind of galactic artifact able to provide limitless free energy to the planet, is something that EarthGov, the single planetary centralized government of the current day, really want to utilize. However, the unitologists want to use the Marker to bring about something called convergence, which is the total and utter destruction of humanity and the physical change of everybody into these undead beasts sprinkled throughout the game. Seems like a pleasant bunch, don't they? So in the ensuing chapters, as your character progressively gets stronger, obtaining more powerful weapons and abilities like stasis and telekinesis, so do the enemies, which include mutant varieties such as the Pregnant, an acid-spitting heap of a bugger, with swarming baby monsters inside them who burst and attack the player in a little pack of disgustingness. The Brute, a giant concoction of limbs and muscles who will literally tear your face off and, well, probably stick it on him, I don't know. Or the Infector, this giant mutant with bat wings that pokes your forehead and turns into a slasher. I swear the first time I saw one of these things, it turned an entire room of corpses into enemies, and I went into like a full-body Tony Soprano after seeing that Uncle Ben's box panic attack. But when I awoke from this comatose, I pretty much wanted to keep playing. It's kind of weird, but if you played the game, you understand. You see, the game plays out in chapters like a book, and each contains different objectives that puts you, Isaac, in a precarious engineering situation where you're either fixing various systems on the ship, tasked with eliminating mini hordes of necromorphs, finding a person or item vital to the escape from the ship, or, my favorite, and the next topic I want to talk about, avoiding the Hunter. During the halfway point of the game, you run into a researcher named Mercer, who initially wants to befriend you. However, when it's concluded that he's secretly a unitologist and a mad, emphasis on mad, scientist, he throws you into stasis, freezing you still while he unleashes his Frankenstein monstrosity at you. A buffed super slasher with the ability to constantly regenerate. It's freaky. And when you come to the realization that you cannot destroy this thing after like your 5th attempt to blow it to smithereens, the chilling last result of running for your life becomes the only thing left. And just when you think you've lost it, the freaking thing bursts through the wall like Mr. X from Resident Evil, and you quickly are on your toes again, hightailing it out of there like freaking Roadrunner. It's awesome heart-pumping stuff. Okay, so for the most part here, it's all been positive, okay? But I do want to get into one critique here, and that's that the Leviathan, not that scary. Nor is it intimidating the 2 times that you face off against it. In fact, I'll do you one better and say that the Hive Mind, the final boss, which looks like the facehugger from Alien mixed with like the giant monster from The Mist, was kind of like just meh to me. Both mini-boss and final bosses were super far away from me in scale, and the only time that they posed a big threat was with those giant tentacle thingies, which were easily avoidable with some sweet Allen Iverson-style crossovers. At some point, I felt like I should have just stepped over one of the tentacles after draining like a 3 from the corner. That's a Allen Iverson NBA joke. I don't expect you to get it, but whatever. Moving on. But other than that, those acid-like balls that they spew at you were super easily to avoid and not scary whatsoever. Against the Hive Mind, I found that each wave of mutants charging at you in the middle of the fight was much more thrilling and challenging. And to that, I'll commend the game for throwing that at me. But other than that, I gotta give the bosses in this game a giant just whatever. A much more intense section of the game was when a rescue ship loses control and crashes into the Ishimura, causing everyone on board to mutate into like these freakishly fast necromorphs. That was super difficult and scary. Fun fact, the Ripper gun works wonders with these guys unless they're coupled with that mutant with the giant club arm that explodes if you get too close. Then you're fucked. But nonetheless, the rescue mission was by far my favorite part of the game. Especially when you venture outside the ship and everything turns into like a silent muffled thud when you fight it, like you're freaking Sandra Bullock in Gravity. Absolute perfect sound design in this game, I gotta tell you. Now finally, let's talk about the ending. I mean, past the Hive Mind stuff, wasn't that interesting, but whatever. What I did find interesting when you finally kill the Hunter, okay, and this is before the final boss, which, by the way, when you kill the Hunter, it is the greatest feeling of elation. Yeah! But what's interesting is that in the last few chapters, Isaac starts to slip further and further into, like, this delusion, being exposed to the Marker so much so that he starts hallucinating different crew members for his dead girlfriend. when Daniels, that double-crossing bitch, forces you to come to this realization, it was like some M. Night Shyamalan-style twist where I kind of saw it coming, but was still thrown back regardless when it came to light. And that final encounter when you're on the ship escaping back to Earth was crazy. Literally. And that brings us into Dead Space 2, which hopefully I finish soon, but spoiler warning here, Isaac in the beginning of part 2 is a full loony bin, straight jacking it all, constantly hallucinating of Nicole at every turn. But if 2 is anything like 1, I'm in for a truly awesome ride. But that's all I have to say about that. But I want to know what you guys think. Did you enjoy the Dead Space remake, or not even a remake? Did you enjoy it when it first came out? Did you enjoy part 2 better? I'm hearing some people saying that part 2 is a lot better than 1, which I'm really finding hard to believe. But with all that being said, I think there's like this giant consensus that I have to stay away from part 3. But I don't know. You guys let me know. Should I even bother with that game? Was there any flaws in part 1 that you saw? I mean, I thought it was pretty perfect. But either way, it's on my pantheon of top 10 favorite game franchises now. So be that as it may, let me know what you think. Leave a comment down in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe to this video. Again, it's been your buddy, AJ from Queens, back with another video. Till next time. Peace.